and welcome to the Doofcast, a film and TV podcast from Doof Media. My name is Scott Daly, and joining me, as always, he's got the juice. It's Matt Freeman.
Juice by Matt. Juice by Matt.
Whoa, Matt.
Yay! Let's start this episode with some positivity and some energy. Gonna go dance around the stage because it's all going downhill from here.
Yeah, you know what I really feel like doing right now, Matt? Some heroin.
Yeah,
Just really feel a hankering.
This movie really makes you have a hankering for. In all seriousness, this is the most effective piece of anti-drug propaganda ever created. It's like because you watch this movie and you're like, it couldn't possibly be good enough to even risk these outcomes as an outside possibility.
Not even once. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this week on our show, part 2 of our series looking at the films of Mr. Darren Aronofsky. This time, we are covering Aronofsky's second film. It was released in the year 2000, and it is known as Requiem for a Dream. Matt, oh boy, what a sophomore film, right? That's technically what it's called, right? That's the second movie as your sophomore attempt.
Gosh, I believe so, but it's almost unbelievable that would be the case. You know, it's like impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
All right, Matt, talk to me about Requiem for a Dream. What is this movie all about?
This movie is about the drug-induced utopias of 4 Coney Island people, which are shattered when their addictions run deep.
This movie was written by Hubert Selby Jr. and Darren Aronofsky. It is based on the novel of the same name by Mr. Selby Jr., and it stars Ellen Burstyn, Jared Leto, Jennifer Connelly, and Marlon Wayans. And, fuck.
Uh-huh.
I think that's the best way to start this one. Just fuck.
Damn. This movie made me sad. I guess I want to start there because I've seen this movie at least once, probably 2 or 3 times in my life. But it made me way sadder this time.
Interesting.
And probably just because I'm a better human now and have more empathy. but like I think like specifically like his mom character.
Oh my god, yeah.
Because like her plight just seemed very like totally just purely sad.
Mm-hmm.
Like she didn't even like do anything wrong, you know? And that being said, I still felt bad. I still felt sad for Jared Leto's character. I think maybe even in the past, I felt more judgment of like Jared Leto's character, for example. And I was like, well, he deserves it for, you know, for doing the heroin.
Yeah.
He shouldn't do that. But I think maybe just because I'm so much older than his character now, I'm like, man, he's sure. I don't know that he deserved all this, you know. And I felt more that way about all the characters, just more pity, more hit by the tragedy of it. Like I was surprisingly saddened by this movie this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think I thought about the title of this movie more on this watch than I ever have in the past. And maybe that's just because I knew I was going to have to talk about it for a podcast. But, you know, the idea of a dream and the dream that all these people have and the actual effort they go through in order to achieve their dream. Okay, the effort is not great. You know, selling drugs, not a great way to achieve your dream. But just kind of slowly watching them be absolutely destroyed by it. And like, I think the interesting thing about this movie with me, Matt, and I love this movie. I've seen it many times. It is horrifying to watch, and yet I keep watching it for some reason. Like there are infinity drug movies, right? Like there are so many movies about the destructive power of drugs. Like it just, everyone in the world has made a movie about this. And yet this one to me remains incredibly unique in, I mean, its style is like the main thing we're going to have to talk about, of course. And this ties in perfectly with talking about Aronofsky in general. But in layering the mom story, the Ellen Burstyn story on top of what is essentially, if you remove the style and just talk about the plot itself, a pretty typical heroin story, right? Like this is how the heroin stories go generally.
Yeah.
Person starts using, loses control, destroys themselves. But by layering this other story on top of it, of poor Sarah Goldfarb, you're not just saying something about the destructive power of drugs. You're saying something ultimately about what how do we define drug? Like obviously heroin drug, right? and
Yeah.
even and even the speed that Sarah Goldfarb is given by her doctor as a weight loss medication is a drug, but also the television is a drug,
Right.
food is a drug, coffee is a drug, the desire for fame is a drug. Like in many ways, the American dream itself is a drug.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the movie starts becoming really, really, really interesting.
Yeah, I noticed this time one little detail I never noticed before is that as they're force feeding her, slop in the asylum, um, the guy is talking about playing blackjack,
Yeah. Yep.
and it's clear that has a horrible gambling addiction, although
Uh-huh.
he doesn't realize it. And I thought that was like, yeah, it's like the American dream is the addiction, or is a lie, or the addiction keeps us from the American dream or something, right? It's
Yeah.
because it's I think I also made the connection of like the dream is not just, I mean it is, that's what's beautiful about it as a title actually, is it's about the dreams of these specific people. The mom wanted to have a successful son and feel like her life had meaning. Jared Leto wanted to marry his sweetheart and have a go straight and so on, and they all lose out on their dream. But also I think it's the American dream. It's the
Yeah.
American dream, and that dream is dead, and it's a requiem for that dream, because it's just so sad. Just
It is so sad. Nothing good happens in this movie. Everyone ends this movie terrible.
yeah, I'm thinking about what you said about other movies about drugs, and I think one thing that and maybe you can think of a counterexample, but I can't think of any counterexamples easily. Like usually it's not just about the drugs. Like very often it'll be like it's actually, it's a mob movie or something, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just like the character happens to pick up an addiction to something as the movie goes on, and it's like the glamour. I find that there are relatively few movies that don't either like glamorize or moralize one or the other about the drugs.
Yeah.
Like it's either moralizing in the sense where it's like, well, look, you got what you deserved, or it's glamorizing where it's like, like every mob movie unsuccessfully tries to make you feel that the mobsters are bad, when actually you're just like, actually this is awesome. Does the same thing for drugs.
Yeah.
But this time you're like, I'm sad for these people. Drugs are terrible. I'm never going to do drugs.
Yeah. I mean, you're absolutely right, because I think there is an honest truth to some of these drugs that they feel fucking amazing, right? Like that, like, of course they do. They have to. And I'm not speaking from personal experience, by the way. But of course they have to feel fucking amazing, or else why would people do them?
Yeah.
But this, even as this movie shows the way the heroin makes them feel, it is never wow, this is fun type of feeling. It's always like even one of the earliest instances of them shooting up is they get the stuff, and Jared Leto's character is, I think, earnestly trying to go straight. And I mean, I obviously the irony of that is he means like, I'm not going to use drugs, but not go straight, as in I'm not going to be involved in the drug trade.
Right.
But he's earnestly trying to go straight, and Marlon Wayans is like, oh, we should try some, just to, and like, even as you see the effect it has on them, that it like relaxes them and makes them clearly feel good, like that is always tinged with a, oh no, because you framed it as they just made their first mistake. And like there is never a moment, at least with the heroin side of things, where you're like, oh yeah, this is good. I understand why someone would do this to themselves. You're always just like, oh no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I think that the flip side of that coin, though, I think the Sarah Goldfarb part of it is, I mean, I guess that's sort of true in that, like, I think the thing that's interesting about it is that the pills are working in a certain extent. Like, she is losing weight. Um,
Yeah.
and there's like a mid moment in the movie where Harry, his drug trade is successful, and he's got like the shoebox is full of money, and Sarah is down 25 pounds and just about to fit into the red dress. And there is this middle moment where, like, if you didn't know what kind of movie you were in, you could be like, maybe everything's just gonna work out okay for everyone.
Right. Right.
um and of course that immediately goes away, and I think that's the point, right? Is that with these addictions and with these things and with these substances and with these desires and with these dreams, like, there's always a moment where, like, for a brief moment where you're like, okay, this might work out actually, and then that's never going to happen.
Hmm. Yeah. I it's interesting. I'm thinking through that because the movie definitely does play up on your just hope for things to go better. It toys with you, right? It
Yeah.
has, she does lose weight. They do make a bunch of money selling drugs, and
And they're
they
going to launch their store, and Marion's going to
yeah,
get her clothing store. Like,
right.
it's happening.
That's one of the aspects that I found like saddest this time is like he's not like he's honestly he honestly just wants to live with this girl and be happy, and for him,
Mhm.
like, being a heroin addict is not like part of his identity. This is just like, okay, well, you know whatever, well, but um he's he's stuck, like, in the scene. I mean, I love that you mentioned the scene where they get the drugs that they're then going to sell, because you see the impossible fight on his face of like,
Yeah.
um I know this is a horrible mistake. I know it's bullshit that we just got to get a taste of it to see how much we should cut because it's business. It's like that.
Mhm.
He knows that's bullshit. He just really really wants it, and he's going to do it, and that's
Yeah.
it has a hold on him like that. Just by the way, speaking of that, scene, and a lot of scenes like it, this is one of those movies that makes me remember that Jared Leto is a good actor, and um, like I feel like if I didn't know anything about his public persona, I
Yeah.
would just uncomplicatedly be like, oh yeah, Jared Leto is a really good actor. He's great. I love
Yeah.
Jared Leto, but because we've had to know too much about him, it has made it complicated.
I
But I mean,
agree.
yeah,
I I think
he's
this is
great.
like one. I mean, I guess Fight Club is technically the first thing I saw him in. But he's such a minor part in that barely counts. I feel like this is like the first thing I like paid attention to him in.
Uh-huh.
Because I think I saw this movie around when it came out. I don't know why that would have happened. It's an NC-17 movie, and I was 15 years old when it came out. But sure, I'm pretty sure I did. Um,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, I mean, he's pretty remarkable. I agree with you. Like, I have such complicated feelings about him as a human being,
Uh-huh.
and those crowd into my feelings of him as an actor. But I do think he is pretty remarkable when he's tuned in to the character.
Yeah.
And I think he just is the perfect cast for this guy who is both an idiot that you're annoyed with, and also this big dope with his big eyes that just kind
Yeah.
of wins you over, with his
Right.
kind of sweet innocent charm.
Right, right. That's the thing, is it's like a very naturalistic performance. It's not big and it's not weird. Like, I think that's where you start to roll your eyes, is when he gets one of these performances where he just decides to play it unlike any human being would ever behave,
Hmm.
and you're
Hmm.
like, okay, like, I get what you're trying to do, but it's not my preferred style of acting, whatever. But this,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just he's just this sweet innocent kid. You just really 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 buy it. You really feel for him. I mean, especially the I don't know, there's a lot of great moments. There's a lot of great acting moments in the movie overall, and they're nicely spread around. I mean,
Yeah.
Jesus, I mean, Jennifer Connelly gets, just God, I mean, holy shit.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say other than that, but yeah, holy shit.
And I forget the name of the mom actor, but she sort of,
Ellen Burstyn.
yeah,
Um,
she's like the best part to me, and the worst part too, obviously.
yeah, yeah. I mean, this is like this is like the role of a lifetime for her.
Hmm.
And God, did she win? I feel like she won the Oscar for this, or maybe she was just nominated. No, she was nominated for leading actress. And it was one of those ones where, like, I think it was controversial whether she should have been supporting and might have won if it was like supporting, but
Mm.
they entered her as leading, and so she didn't win. But I think she's won it. What did she win an Oscar for? I don't know. She won in 1975 for Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Okay.
A movie I've never seen, but no, she's absolutely remarkable. And that, oh my God, that fucking monologue she has to do about old age that she's delivering to Harry. I mean, holy shit, man. I actually read somewhere that, like, at some point in that monologue, the camera starts to drift to the left a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And the reason for that is because the camera operator was crying.
Oh, wow.
And his tears like messed up the camera sight, so he couldn't see what was happening, so he didn't notice the camera had tilted, and they ended up using that take for the
Wow.
thing because her monologue was so powerful that he was crying. And it's just, again, like, this could very easily have been just a typical Heroin movie, and it is her character and her story and everything that I think crystallizes the central message, especially when you talk about the ways in which Aronofsky weaves these stories together in really interesting ways. Both just literally through the edit, but also stylistically through match cutting. Like, when they shoot up, we're going to do this quick series of cuts of the process of cooking it up and then putting in the needle and then shooting it up, and then with the popping of the pills, we're going to do an exact same thing. Even when she pops the pills and then gets a coffee and drinks her coffee, we're going to do the same thing. And it's just like teaching you that these are the same essentially. And gosh.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that kind of reminds me. You're talking about, like, even the TV is a drug, but also food is a drug. Maybe you even said that, and I blanked. But yeah, I mean, it treats her relationship with food and television as basically being about distraction. And then you realize, well, the same is true of coffee. The same is true of, you could even say, like, I thought it was interesting how, like, her relationship with her friends is not what I would call a healthy friendship. It's like that is also somehow also a drug for her. It's like a thing she uses to kind of stimulate herself and pick herself up. It's not really about like belonging and connection. It's about self-soothing
status, right?
Yeah.
It's about status and about, she like, why does she want her son to, like, be successful, right? Like, that's a fun question to ask, right? Like, is it well because he's your son and you want him to be happy and successful, or is it so you can get the choice spot on the folding chairs that sit out front in front of the apartment?
Right.
And what motivates you to do these things? Like, why do you want to fit in the red dress? Why does the red dress matter so much? Because it's a symbol of a time when she was happy. Her husband was still around. Her son still loved her in her mind. And she could go back to this time when everything made sense and everything was happy. And that is completely motivating. But, like, it's like the reason to lose weight, right, is to be healthy, right? Because you don't want to die. You don't want to get sick. You don't want to get a disease. Like, that is the motivating reason, or should be, but that is never her concern. She's not losing weight because she's concerned with her health. She's losing weight to fit into a specific dress to go on television. And that's it.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I found it just super tragic because it's like, I mean, what else is there? I don't know. This is going to sound super horrible in some sense, I guess, but it's like, I found it very easy. I guess I'll speak for myself. Like, I found it very easy to imagine being in that scenario, which maybe wasn't true when I saw this movie for the first time 20 years ago, but I found it easy to imagine just being, like, alone. My kids are grown. They're off doing who knows what. And, you can even imagine, like, being happy that your kids are off, living their lives, but like, that doesn't keep you warm, when you're just in your house all day watching TV, don't have any real friends. Like I just,
Yeah.
I just found it so tragic this time. I know I keep returning to that, but I want to emphasize how surprised I am by that, I guess. Cause I was like, I've always known like, yeah, this is like one of those really, makes you feel like shit movies, but, it actually got to me
Yeah,
successfully.
I think that's a great point, and I agree with you. The thing that I kept kind of running through my head this time was the tragedy of it, and I think like a younger version of myself when I first saw this movie very much approached it to a point of superiority. Like, look at these dumb people making their dumb choices and succumbing to these things like idiots. Aren't they so stupid? Look how they're
Right.
trapped within their own cycles of destruction. And yeah, being older and hopefully wiser, I was definitely across the board able to look at them as people who are just stuck and trapped. And instead of, just there was never in my head a moment of like, oh, these people are getting what they deserved. Good. I was always like, oh, this sucks. But this was very much this sucks in a way that I can empathize with more
Yeah.
than I ever was able to before.
Yeah. I mean, I think you saying that made me just sort of realize like all these characters are older than me when I first watched this movie.
Yeah.
And now they're mostly younger than me. And the character who's like the mom, like the super old character, she's still older than me, obviously, but I relate to her more than I
Yeah.
relate to the young kids running around, just being kids, being young 20s basically. And so yeah, I think that's why it hit me with a lot more empathy, because when I feel like this happens to me a lot, like when I was a kid and I watched movies about adults, which really most movies are, you're like I expect better of you as an adult. You're an adult. You
Yeah.
should have your shit together. And then when you are an adult and you realize like, oh, I'm just a kid who is now larger, you, you have more empathy for those characters.
Yeah, and I think it made me like I've always liked this movie, like I said, but I appreciate it on a deeper level now because like
Mhm.
I appreciate it for being able to show these people destroy themselves and letting you feel for them while simultaneously being like, why would you do that? Why would you shoot up into your fucking rotting?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that was so disgusting. That
Uh-huh.
was so disgusting. Oh.
Yeah, that part. Uh, I guess we can call this a signature directorial tick, is having there be some really gross thing on somebody's skin that is growing and becoming infected and being weird, and then they
Yeah.
stab it with something. Um,
Sure. I mean, overall, I think especially after these two movies and knowing what's coming up is the thing that Aronofsky is clearly most concerned with in my mind is really making his audience uncomfortable. That
mhm.
he really wants to put you through the ringer and toss things at you using every tool at his disposal, using editing, using visuals, using all different kinds of lenses, using sound. To just really kind of this is going to be a viscerally uncomfortable experience watching this movie, and it is an uncomfortable experience, even like it's off-putting in the ways in which, especially as a um I can't remember her name now, the mom character,
Yeah, I don't either.
especially as she kind of descends, the way like, okay, we're just gonna flip to this type of camera now. We're gonna use this fisheye lens situated right on you, and it's spinning around, and then we're gonna play with speed and motion, and everyone else is moving fast, but you're moving slow, and all these things. Like it's a beautiful movie, just like technically, but
Yeah,
it is not. It's not fun to
no,
watch. It's not like it doesn't make you're never comfortable. You're
yeah.
always kind of off kilter. And I
It's a
think the same is true with Pi as well, but I think this is like obviously he has a lot more budget, he has a lot more time, and he's able to fully execute on some of these concepts.
I wonder if, it would be appropriate to call these like psychological horror on some level. Like I know they're not really horror, but he
Mhm.
uses, I think what I'm getting at here is he uses a lot of the like language of horror, um,
Yeah.
and in order to communicate the disturbing feelings that he's trying to just to hit you with. I agree, both in Pi and in this, we're watching characters who are mentally disintegrating, um, and we're getting into their headspace and really empathizing and tuning into the subjectivity of their suffering,
Yeah.
um, and including the fear that they feel. I mean, I love every moment with like the refrigerator, where the
Yeah.
refrigerator's trying to eat her, I guess, and like her reaction to it and the way it's shot and the noise, the sound mixing, the just the lenses that are used, even it just creates this incredible
Yeah.
sense of like identification with her and like claustrophobia
Yeah.
and feeling like really feeling her fear and also feeling bad for her, because you're just like, God, like it that one just I mean, just I guess to be slightly moralizing, I guess, like hers is the saddest one to me,
Yeah.
because
Oh, yeah.
and it's specifically because it's like, oh, you're going to go to the doctor. You're
Mhm.
doing what you think is responsible. You're going to the doctor. The doctor is going to give you pills. Doctors prescribe medicine to help with medical problems, and the doctor doesn't even look at her, like almost like satire level of
Oh my
treatment
gosh.
of the doctor, where the doctor doesn't
Yeah.
even look up from his notepad, and prescribes her this ridiculous regimen, and then after she starts having psychosis from overindulging in the meds, which she doesn't know she's not supposed to do, really, like
Yeah.
in the 90s nobody was like, by the way, this is like the most addictive shit known to man. This is meth,
Yeah.
um
Well, I mean, it's amphetamine. Like it just
yeah,
literally is, and it's uppers, and then they've also prescribed a downer for her at
right,
night that's gonna knock you out. So it's
right.
just it's narcotics. Like that's that's what it is.
Yeah. And then she goes
Um.
back and he just prescribes her Valium, and
Yeah.
presumably like on top of whatever she's already taking.
Right.
It's a nightmare. It's one of those nightmares where you're like, this has probably happened to people. Like basically this exact story has probably happened to people, and it's just
Yeah,
really
and
upsetting.
like it's not the fentanyl crisis we're living under right now, but it's the same kind of attitude that causes this thing where we're just prescribing these incredibly powerful drugs for things. And yeah, people are trusting their doctors. And yeah, like yes, she starts abusing the drugs, but to your point, she feels something is not right. She feels wrong. Something is going wrong. She goes to the doctor, and I love how that scene is shot because we've got like, first of all, we've got like a lens, like kind of a fisheye lens kind of put in the corner of the room that she's right next to, and the doctor is all the way across the room, which just the result is he seems so far away from her. He's so far away. And then he's moving at like double speed, and she's like at normal speed.
Yeah.
Which just goes to show like how completely not syncing they are. It demonstrates how she's experiencing the world right now, but it also is showing how out of sync everything is. And yeah, he doesn't even look at her. He's just like, "You're losing weight. What's the problem?
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
feel right." And he's not even listening. And yeah, so like that was her last attempt to reach out to the people of authority that are supposed to help with these things, to say, "Hey, you need to get me off these drugs."
Yeah.
Um, and nope. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
just here's
Yeah.
something new.
I guess just to jump from that to another part of the movie I wanted to talk about is the, I guess what you could call the crescendo. I don't know what else to call it, where everything is going just completely into the ditch for everyone at the same time.
Yeah, and we're just cutting between them
Yeah.
like an orchestra.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's nice. I didn't think of that. But, I like what you said last week about calling it like this machine gun style of editing, where
Mhm.
over the course of the movie, he's really ramped it up to the point where it's like he changes the way you process information, really, because
Mhm.
in the beginning of the movie, it's a much more slow, normal style of direction, and it we get occasional bits where like they shoot up and it does the like flashing between them, um, doing their drug stuff, and but like by the time of the crescendo, it's cutting every like 0.7 seconds, like for a while. Like it's just this like flashing of images and cutting between people, and you're not, you know, you're not confused. It's not, it's off-putting, but it's off-putting in a way that it intends to be, not in the sense where you're like confused. It's off-putting because you're just overwhelmed with the horror of what you're witnessing. I really do. I'm gonna keep this tool in my pocket here. This calling it horror, because I don't know. Maybe this is not an original thought at all, and people call him a horror director. But like I feel like that's what he's kind of doing, is he's taking horror sensibility and applying it to topics like, you know, our relationship with the divine in Pi, or just the simple reality of drug addiction in this movie. I think Black Swan is by far the most horror out of the movies that I've seen, and we still haven't even gotten to that one on his list anyway. I never thought of it that way, so I'm kind of working it through in my head.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're spot on with that, and yeah, I mean, looking at the movies we got coming up, I think that fits to a T with a lot of the other ones as well. And yeah, I mean, it is this really fascinating sensibility and fascinating look, and it's so, because what I'm struggling with is the idea of saying this movie is like exquisitely shot, but also like, why do I want to look at any of this? Like it's a really interesting idea, because like these like you'll see when we get to some of the later movies, like when we get to Mother, I think is Mother, like him taking this idea of, I'm going to make you, the viewer, uncomfortable. And then he's like, okay, you thought that was bad. Let's fucking go.
Okay.
Only movie I've ever watched with my wife where she almost walked out of the theater. Not because she wasn't enjoying the movie on a conceptual level, but just like she was overwhelmed with the things being pummeled on at her eyeballs by the screen. And he's just consistently interested in that kind of filmmaking, and like, okay, we're going to take this idea, and then how can I use every tool at my disposal as a director to push everyone out of their comfort zone, and I think make them more susceptible to, I think you called it propaganda, but like almost manipulation, like to drive the point home with what we're saying here. Because I think this movie is so effective at making its ultimate point, which is, you know, everything we've talked about so far.
Yeah,
but like,
right.
Even if you didn't fully understand like the words of the themes, you leave the movie feeling a certain way about everything. And like, if someone says like like heroin, and you just have this sense memory associated with it of watching this movie, but then that also connects to weight loss pills and to cough, all the things we talked about,
right.
and just how effective that is.
It turns addiction into a horror movie monster.
Yeah, exactly.
Where it is the monster that is stalking the characters from a, you know, taking all the tools and tropes of that genre and then applying it to the movie, or applying it to our analysis. It's like, you're the heroine is stalking them and transforming them, and, you know, possessing them like a ghost would possess a person, where it sort of transforms and breaks these people when they're, you know, desperate for it, and going to these great lengths and doing these increasingly self-destructive things. You're frightened of it, like genuinely, like it's I don't know. I'm not really exaggerating when I say, like, I do wonder how many people's lives this movie changed, because you can't watch it and then be like, have a cavalier attitude about heroin anymore. It's just like, that's in your brain now forever. You know.
Yeah. No, you're so right. I do like, obviously I've as we said, I've never done hair. I've never done any like hard drug ever in my life, and I don't think I ever will. And I do remember seeing this movie young, so I do wonder how much of that is just like Like, do I want to try this? No, I'm actually terrified of that idea. I'm
Yeah.
terrified of that idea of trying any of these drugs. Like even like cocaine is not the same type of drug as heroin as far as addiction and dependency immediately getting you.
Uh-huh.
But like never.
Yeah.
I'm never gonna do it ever,
Right.
ever, 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 because I'm just like, this central idea is terrifying to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think I think you're basically right, but I also think that that can be pretty life ruining too, as we've learned from
No, certainly, yeah,
Stephen King.
yeah.
But I mean, I guess you just kind of prompted me to realize, like, it's kind of interesting that in a movie that runs the gamut from gambling to television to heroin, there's not really any alcohol abuse that I can remember
Mm, no,
in
that's
the
true.
entire, like, not even a single instance, not even all, not even like maybe they're drinking wine at dinner at some point. And that feels slightly intentional, but I don't know. Maybe it's just like everybody kind of already culturally knows about alcoholism and alcohol ruining lives, and maybe
Yeah,
he just wanted to kind of tread different ground with it.
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, what, like we said, this is based off a book of the same name, and I haven't read the book. I did look at like the summary for the book, and it is basically the movie. I mean, the screenplay for the movie was written by the author of the book and Aronofsky working together, but like the plot of the book is essentially a
Mhm.
1978 novel, by the way. So
Interesting.
it's a thing that's been on in the public consciousness for a while. But essentially, the rough story of the book is exactly what happens. Like, everything happens the same way. The end, all the characters all end the same way. Harry has his arm amputated. He's in jail. Marion becomes a prostitute. Uh, uh, Sarah is like gets electrotherapy, and Tyrone is stuck in jail and being abused because of his race.
Yeah.
I do think, I will say, like, one, if I have to have a complaint about this movie, is I do think that Marlon Wayne's Tyrone character is a bit underserved. Like, when you read kind of the summary of the book, it seems like it's literally a story in four parts. That each of these four characters is like a core part of the novel and the story it's telling. And like, Tyrone is a character in this story, but I think to me, the movie treats him as like secondary to the three main characters in my mind. And do
Yeah.
you think that?
100%. He doesn't really have his own thing going on. I mean, he's
Yeah.
basically he shares in all of the struggles that um Leto has,
Hmm.
and then also, he's got this thing with his mom where you get, there's just a mild tinge of pathos with him, where it's like, it's not that he's in love with this girl, it's that he wants to sort of honor the memory of his mom, or maybe honor the sacrifice of his mom, or
Yeah.
something. And it's vague, but I'm kind of fine with it being vague. But yeah, there's just not a lot. I mean, in
He
fact,
just Yeah, he just seems like he gets less focused. Like, yeah, I agree, that's all there for sure.
yeah,
It's just not it doesn't get as much time as the other three characters.
I kind of forgot he was in the movie, honestly. Like, but by that I mean, since I saw it years ago, like,
Hmm.
vividly remembered, like, yeah, he gets his arm cut off. She ends up in this horrifying orgy scenario. She ends up getting electroshock, and then I just didn't remember about him
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
um because, yeah, I mean, I mean, if anything, I guess he weird to put it this way, but he has the most um positive ending. Because
I
like,
guess comparatively, yeah,
he's
yeah,
just in jail. Like, he's gonna get out. He's gonna, what's the word, um go cold turkey in jail, and then you know maybe he gets a second chance. But I guess the movie doesn't
uh,
really give you a feeling like, oh,
ultimately the answer to that has to be no, that
yeah,
he's just fucked. Like, it
yeah,
would kind of contradict everything the movie's saying to then be like, and Tyrone,
yeah,
made it big.
yeah, he was
He
fine,
finally got
actually.
out of the ghetto. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, yeah, no.
I agree. It's like there's less going on with him, and then his finale is less horrifying, and so
Yeah.
it doesn't stick in your head as much.
Which, I mean, it's a shame because I think Marlon Wayans does a good job with this character,
Yeah,
and he's really effective in the scenes he's in. But I just feel like his story, yeah, it's almost a result of his story being so closely linked with Harry's that they don't feel distinct, and Harry feels like the lead in that story,
yeah,
and so he just kind of gets overshadowed, unfortunately, which is a shame.
yeah. I agree. I mean, I don't think it like damages the movie, but I do. It is one of those things where I could have done with a couple more short scenes where we, I don't know, understand him more, understand like what his, I don't know. That's the thing. He does have a couple short scenes characterizing him, and he is his own
He does,
character.
yeah.
It's just like we say. It's Harry is taking the lead, as you say.
I guess the reason I'm having this reaction is when I read the summary of the novel, and when the novel really seemed like it made this to be like a what's a triptych but for four.
Quartic.
Sure. I was a little surprised to learn that. Like my initial reaction was, "Oh, really? I guess he's more of a character in the novel than he is in the movie." Which, yeah, is unfair because he is a character. He's definitely a character in this. He does get back, like he does get some focus, but yeah, it just feels like comparatively less. I mean, this isn't that long of a movie, right? So it's under 2 hours. It's an hour and 42 minutes. So there wasn't like a lot of time for four leads essentially.
Yeah, I was actually pleasantly surprised at how short this movie is.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't it kind of, considering like the weight of it, doesn't it feel like, oh yeah, that's one of those 2 hour plus movies that?
Yeah.
But no, it's a nice quick hour 45. I think that's one thing I appreciate about Aronofsky actually is his movies tend, as far as I recall, to be of reasonable length, but because he just packs in so much story and he's so intense with his stories and his filmmaking, it feels like you've been through like an ordeal. You like stagger out of the movie and it's like, yeah, it was less than 2 hours.
Yeah, I agree. I'm interested to see if this holds up as we move into, man. So I looked at The Fountain, which is our next movie, which is a movie I swore I would have bet $100 was a 3 hour movie. It's 97 minutes long.
Yeah,
That's insane.
Yeah. I have Black Swan in front of me. Guess how long is Black Swan?
I bet it's 100 minutes.
It's 108 minutes. It's a tight, and that's another movie where I remember that being like, God, that movie's just like a nightmarish odyssey. It's gotta be 2.5 hours at least. Yeah, I was literally in my head. I was like, well, surely he slacks off on this later in his career because there's no way Black Swan is a short movie. No, it's quite a reasonable movie. I love this about this guy, right? Like these are some of the most intense, memorable movies in the world. Nobody forgets Pi. Nobody forgets Requiem for a Dream. Yeah. And yet these are very reasonably short, just hitting you hard and letting you go home. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, I think, by the way, you're going to be a little disappointed when we get to Noah based on what I just looked up. But yes, I agree with that. I mean, that's one thing that I've been thinking about Aronofsky a lot. And this movie, like, I actually don't know how many times I've actually sat down and watched this entire movie, but it feels like it was a lot because I have so many stark, clear pictures from this movie in my head. Yeah. And I think the same with The Fountain coming up next as well, is these movies stick with you. Like this is a guy who, whether it's just because of the way he constructs images or the way he tells stories or those two things working in tandem, but like I will never, ever, ever, ever forget the disgustingness of the rotting like vein on Jared Leto's arm. I will never forget what Sarah Goldfarb looks like at the end of that thing. I will never forget, Jennifer Connelly in her makeup she's sweating and it's like sweating down her face. Jennifer Connelly, by the way, like objectively one of the most beautiful women on the planet.
Right.
Quite possibly, the most beautiful woman that has ever existed on the face of the planet. Like, just kind of brought low with the thing that she's subjecting herself to in this movie.
Right. No, there's something like profane about taking Jennifer Connelly and putting her in this role, right? But I think that's the intent. Is you take like you said, like perfect perfect human being, and you subject them to this. Especially I don't know what her career was like before this, but I think about like Labyrinth or whatever, where it's like, this can't be that many years after Labyrinth. And you got to imagine that she's like, I want to distinguish myself. I want to make a break into making grown-up movies. And Aronofsky's like, I have an idea.
She had Dark City, right? We watched that movie. She was in that.
Okay.
It's a very different kind of movie. I mean, this is like 15 years after Labyrinth, but no, I get you though. Connolly's career is a really interesting one, actually.
Is it really that long after Labyrinth?
Yeah, Labyrinth was 86. This is 2000. So,
jeez. I mean, I guess she still hasn't aged since then. So,
I mean, did you watch Top Gun Maverick?
I did.
How old is she now?
I don't know. I couldn't guess.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
She is 54 years old.
Yeah.
How?
She's one of the Fae. She's not one of us.
Yeah. But yeah, no. She's. You're absolutely right. It's the perfect casting. It's the perfect choice because, and I mean, one of the things I didn't realize about her character, ever before that I picked up on this one is that she's loaded, or at least her family's loaded.
Yeah.
Like, I forget what it says about like her parents, but her dad like is a big guy in business and has like a lot of money. And so like her dream, like she actually is one of the few people in the world lucky enough to have the means or the path to realizing her dream of starting her own business a possibility. And yet she destroys herself.
Yeah. That's a good point.
For love is a drug as well.
Love is a drug. Yeah. So that I'm glad you said that, man. That because like I was thinking about this movie, and I was totally split in my mind because there's all these scenes where those two characters are like, I'm thinking specifically of the scene where they're just lying in bed across from each other, and the screen is like split into two.
Oh my god! Yes, thank you for reminding me of this sequence. Yes, go.
And there's a bunch of stuff like this, but they're saying these incredibly sweet, like romantic, loving things back and forth to each other. And this is what I mean by like I was split, because I was like, on the one hand, I kind of feel like this is the best thing in both of their lives. Like the fact that he actually sees something in her that no one else sees, and the fact that she provides him with this grounding. But also, if you pay attention to the details of the things that are being said, it's really not that positive, because like he's saying like, you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, which is highly superficial, really. I mean, it's not like it's not like you're not allowed to say that to your girlfriend, but it's like, okay, that shouldn't be the basis of everything. And then he says something to her at one point where he's like, a girl like you could really fix me up, or something like that. I forget the exact wording. And it's like, wait a second, that shouldn't be what you're asking of her. That's not responsible. And basically that led me to, or technically what you just said made it click for me, where I'm like, is this also a drug? Even this thing that is in the movie somewhat portrayed as a positive and beautiful thing at many moments, is this also a drug that they're using to distract themselves, to medicate themselves?
Yeah, and it's not to say like love is always a drug, right? Right? Just like food is not always a drug. But it when you're addicted to it, it can be. And I think this is great because one of the things I love about that scene you're talking about is how Aronofsky communicates this to us, because he shoots that scene super interestingly. So they are laying in bed together, but the entire sequence, they are never in frame together at the same time. They are either we're, because the frame is split down the middle, and either on one side we're seeing like a medium shot of one of the characters, while we're seeing on the other side of the screen like a super close up of fingers rubbing, like touching over skin or caressing. I think we got a very close shot of Jared Leto's belly button at some point. And like that's interesting in itself, because we're cutting back and forth between them as they talk, and then the other scene is always touching or caressing. But then they do this really interesting thing where then we cut to where they're just on the screen together technically, but it's still doing split screen. So Leto's on the left looking towards the center of the frame, Connolly's on the right looking towards the center of the frame. In essence, if you took the line out of the middle, like that's just what they're doing, right? They're just like, if you just shot this as a wide, you would see both of them in the frame at the same time. But Aronofsky doesn't do that. He's still doing the thing where he's got dual like split frame going on, even though that's just where they are at this point. There's no reason to do that anymore. And so that's the type of thing that says, oh, it's because it's intentional, because we're drawing it, like we're showing how these people are, despite being in bed together, despite being together, despite caressing each other, despite touching each other, they are not together on the frame. There is something wrong here. There's some discongruous thing happening here with these two people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think what I am getting from all that is like they're having two separate experiences.
Yeah.
Where, what she's having the experience of being praised and adored, and he's having the experience of praising and adoring and sort of like appreciating this beautiful woman, but they're like not connecting. They're not connecting through that. They're just like having their own experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this all becomes very clear when you see how quickly they turn on each other. Once the drugs dry up, like how quickly it goes from, this we're in it together, we're a team, we're going to do this, we're going to accomplish this all, this is the power of love, to, hey, can you call that guy up again?
Right.
And get some money from him.
Yeah. Can you call drugs? Max from the previous movie?
Yeah. Oh gosh, you're right. Oh my god.
Yeah. So I just wanted to mention,
such a fucking sleaze in this movie. Oh my god.
It's great. I mean, we get almost everybody. We get almost literally everybody who is in that movie, because that movie has like 4 people in it. We get the one of the nurses at one point is his neighbor in Pi. The old man, the mentor character in Pi is the pawn shop owner.
Yep.
The sleazebag is the main character of Pi. I think if there was anybody else, they're also in this movie at some point. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. And I didn't remember this honestly, but Jennifer Connelly is also in Noah. So
yeah, he likes to. It is interesting seeing, as we've done this project, like seeing the directors that like to reuse actors and the directors that don't. And also when you have a director that clearly likes to work with the same people again, and then you see they never work with certain people again, you're like, like maybe my Jared Leto bias is showing again here, but like,
yeah.
Hey Darren, why did you never work with Jared again?
Yeah, yeah, it's entirely possible. Yes.
I don't know. But yeah, oh my gosh. Just everything. I love this movie, dude. It is uncomfortable, it is terrible, it is depressing. I do not enjoy watching this movie, but like having watched it and having forced myself through the experience, I'm always just like, I love this movie.
Yeah, I mean, something you said a minute ago, like I don't think I can't have watched this movie more than twice before this, and yet I like every frame of it has been seared into my mind. I wanted to return to something you said a second ago, like love is not entirely bad in this movie. Like I think one of the moments that really got to me as being like one of those moments where there's like hope is within our grasp and then it's snatched away, um in a very poetic way, was when, you know, he goes to his mom's house to bring her a new TV, which is already kind of genius, because it's like he's just giving her a better form of her addiction, um her first addiction, right? But he's trying to make her happy. Like he genuinely is trying to make her happy, but the only way he can think to make her happy is to buy her a TV, which is, you know, bad for her. And then while he's there, he notices that she's on drugs.
Yeah, the grinding of her teeth and his immediate ability to clock that was so good.
It's so good, and he like freaks out, and he's like genuinely freaked out about this. He's like, no, like you can't. Like as off the rails as my life has gotten, I can't let this happen to you, Mom. And he like really like genuinely freaks out about it. And then he's in, you know, he leaves her house and he's in the cab. And I think what got to me is he just breaks down crying in the cab, and like you really buy that he's just sad for his mom and for what a piece of shit he's been to his mom, and all this weight of like sadness. And so like that's
and then what does he do right after that?
And then he shoots up immediately, and then it cuts back to him and he's just numb, staring out the window. But like that, to me, it was like, well, it's genius, because the movie is not just like unrelentingly worse and worse and worse. Like it gives us moments like that where it's like he really does love his mom. He does, yeah. He's kind of a shitty person, but he really does love his mom. But then the drug once again sneaks in like a little demon and steals away even that compassion that he was feeling in that moment, because it was too strong. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah. What do you think? And I might be reaching here, but maybe not. What do you think this movie has to say about enablement? That's not a word. Enabling.
I think it is. I think it should be a word.
Because of the TV itself speaks to me about that. Like, this is one of the first things we see in this movie is Harry is breaking into his mother's house, taking her TV, rolling it what seems like miles away to pawn it for drug money.
Yeah.
And then what happens is she goes out the door and she buys it back from the pawn dealer. And we repeat the process again and again and again. And it's like, and she, like, she has handcuffed the TV to the radiator. And then even then she's like, it's not for you, Harry. That's for the robbers. It's like, you mean your son? Like, so, I mean, I do think this movie is saying something about how we enable people, like that she like is allowing him to do this to her. And like, I mean, that kind of, and I'm trying to expand this out to the rest of the stories, and the way, I guess, modern medicine or society is enabling her addiction by basically fostering it and not stepping in like, I don't know how that works with the other character, but I feel like there's something there.
Well, I'm not really sure, but I do feel like, once again, the movie is less moralizing than maybe a similar movie might be, because it's like, you know, think about the pawn shop owner, where he's like, how long are we going to keep doing this? Like he knows what's going on exactly. And he's like, you know, he's probably making a little profit with every, you know, cycle of the television. Right.
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
But even he is like, I think you should like not like let your son in the house anymore. Like, this is kind of, he's like,
yeah, but not enough to do anything. He could simply say, I'm not going to take this television from you anymore.
He could, and that's true. I mean, one does think like, well, then he would just pawn it somewhere else, like which is not to excuse. I mean, like that's the thing, is it's like, I'm not excusing that guy's role as an enabler, but like, it really, I think the like all these situations highlight the sort of systematic nature of these problems. Like, you know, one thing the movie doesn't do is like, it doesn't have like, oh yeah, and then there's like the horrible drug dealer who pushes the drugs on them. Horrible drug dealer character that we can blame and we can get all, you know, upset about. Like, if it weren't for that drug dealer who was pushing the drugs on them, then none of this would have happened. It's like, no, there's no they're always like on their own initiative going out and finding the drugs in this elaborate system of drugs that feels very impersonal and inhuman actually.
True.
And it really it doesn't feel like anyone that anything that anybody does differently would matter to this system.
No, that's fair.
I love that you pointed out the enabling thing, because that reminded me of one of the like kind of the spine of the movie, which I really wanted to talk about. So I'm glad you reminded me, because like it begins and ends with this. It's the self-help guy. The
juice,
because the juice, because it's not just that it's television. It's not just that it's generic television, anesthetizing you. It's specifically this guy who just endlessly talks about like self-improvement and don't eat sugar and basically promising you this vision of like, if you just do these simple things, then you will be perfect and happy and successful and all your dreams will come true. And she is using this like story of like the dream, the promise of a better life as a kind of narcotic to distract herself from her actual life. And that even feels like a kind of enablement, because it's weird, right? Because it's like, do we really want to condemn people who try to tell people to like be healthier? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's a twisted like double-sidedness to this, where it's what I'm not saying is like everyone who tells you not to eat sugar is a snake oil salesman who's just trying to manipulate you. Like that's clearly not true. But the way like the role that takes on in her life just becomes like yet another addiction.
Yeah, I mean, it's this kind of industrialization of hey, this might make you a little bit happier. Like just like the self-help industry is like a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? Of like 5 simple tricks to improve your health, like all like the racket of that this whole thing is. And this guy is clearly as you said, a snake oil salesman. I mean, one perfect casting again, picking Christopher McDonald as the character is named Tappy Tibbins, by the way, which is just like the most absurd name ever. But it's just like the perfect guy of just like anyone that's watching the movie can immediately tell this guy's full of shit, and this is all just bullshit. But of course our character can't, and she's fully hooked into this whole thing, which is so like, it's so great because it's so undefined of what he's actually doing for so long, and weird that you're just like, what is this?
Right.
Like, juice by Sarah. Product? Juice by Sarah. Yeah. Like what is it? And it's just so weird and off-putting. And I love the moments where like her psychosis is making it come alive, and you see the version of herself and the version of him kind of step out of the TV and in her house and laughing at her and hitting her and all her insecurities. Which, by the way, like you see her all like done up, and you're like, oh wait, Ellen Burstyn is a beautiful woman that they've made look a little dumpy for this movie.
I agree. I think the thread to me that is emerging, and maybe should have been more obvious if I had thought about it before, is just like the self-help guy is like promising you happiness. He's like selling you the promise of happiness. But the happiness is fake. Like you're not actually like maybe you would actually be healthier if you didn't eat sugar and didn't eat red meat. Like maybe that's true, but that's not really what he's selling. What he's selling is the promise of happiness, and in that sense, he's a snake oil salesman. Yeah, and I think the promise of happiness is the carrot that is dangled in all these different things with the different drugs. I'm going to be on television. I got to take these diet pills, heroin. We just got to get the fix. And then everything will be back the way it was. This girl is going to fix me. This guy loves me. These are all this illusory promise of happiness, which is really just a distraction from the reality of the series of horrible choices that the characters are making.
Yeah. I agree. The dream is dead. These and attempting to medicate to deal with
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
love that we pointed out that moment where he's crying, like he has like genuine sadness, and he medicates it away
Yeah.
immediately. Yeah. God, what
Yeah.
a depressing movie. What a depressing world.
I know. I just because I want to mention it, just because I don't have to explain myself. Like the one of the shots that has always stuck with me for my whole life is very simple. It's like it's not even like a super gross shot. It's literally just the mom's friends come to the mental asylum or whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like waiting anxiously, and they see her come out, and it's I guess the genius of it is just it lingers on their reaction
Yeah.
when they see her before it finally cuts to her, and it's not like she looks like grotesque. It's just like she looks totally emaciated and like
Yeah.
skeleton, and like her eyes are like vacant and like staring past them, and it's like she's not even there anymore. It's not even the same person,
Yeah.
and then it cuts to them outside, and they're just like hugging and crying. And to me, like for whatever reason, that like sequence in that shot, I guess that sequence of shots has always been something that just lives in my head.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because one of the things she said about them was that they weren't really her friends, right? That
Mm-hmm.
like when Harry's like, "Mom, you got friends," and she's like, "Nah, what are they?" And then these women like actually came and saw her and were saddened by her fate,
Yeah.
and clearly cared about her on some level.
Yeah. And maybe they felt responsible because
Yeah.
I don't actually remember, but I think probably one of them was the one that gave her the diet pill recommendation, right?
Yeah.
It kind of has to be, although I don't actually remember.
Yeah, I think you're right. The one thing we have to make sure we talk about is the music, Matt, because
Yeah.
this the central song at the core of this movie is so good, so good in fact that it was featured in what incredible movie trailer, Matt?
I don't know. I mean, it's in
Are you
everything.
serious?
I feel like
The
I feel
Two
like the song,
Towers. I thought that I was just tossing you a softball.
this song was in the Two Towers trailer.
Yeah. Go listen to the Two Towers trailer. It's actually a really good trailer. It tells you a surprising amount of the movie, but
Huh.
the violin portion of this score was
Huh.
used in the Two Towers trailer. I'm pretty sure I saw the Two Towers before I saw this movie, because I think I saw this movie actually because it's like this is the movie that has the song from the Two Towers trailer.
That's crazy.
Which is a really interesting choice, and it worked. I can't believe you didn't remember that. I feel like I watched that Two Towers trailer like 500 times.
Not only did I not remember that, but I never knew that. So I don't know, man. Oh yeah. I mean, the thing is, this song for me is just one of those songs that I put in like every like mixtape, you know.
Oh yeah.
So I've heard this song a million times. It's called Lux
perfect.
Eterna. It's just a great song, and I actually forgot this. Like when the movie starts, it actually starts with this very remixed like electronica version of the song,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only later in the movie really that we hear the true sort of orchestral version of it.
I also feel like the way, like, when you know the song, you're like waiting for the violin part to kick in.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it holds on the build up to that for a long time, to the point where like this time when I was watching the movie, I was just like waiting for it. I was waiting for it. I was waiting. And I felt kind of like, maybe the build up to a high. I was like, come on, give it to me. I want it. Give me the violin.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I think it.
Oh,
it's such good music.
I think it is. I mean, it's a very, it's simple, right? It's actually, it's actually simple, but it's used very skillfully in the movie. Like, I think this is a good lesson of how to do a soundtrack, because like you said, it's used to maintain like a feeling of tension and a feeling of escalation. And, you add more of the instruments in, or you have it be more sparse, and it's just the the backing strings, or depending on what exactly we're doing in this moment. It's not it's not like they just push play on the song and then the movie happens, right? It's
Sure.
It's carefully done.
Yeah, I agree. So just so you know, this movie cost about $4.5 million to make. So let me do some quick math here. That's a budget increase from his first movie of $1 trillion
Yeah,
percent.
right. Of $4.5 million. Yeah.
It grossed just under 7.5 million worldwide. So that kind of surprised me. Like, I feel like, I mean, honestly, the reason for that is that this movie got an NC-17 rating,
Yeah,
which
right.
kind of fucked it. Which is like, I mean, obviously there's some pretty brutal like sex stuff in this movie, but like that, I feel like nothing I've not seen in other rated R movies.
Yeah, but Scott, are you saying that because we just watched Poor Things and that's
Yeah, but that was
skewing
a
the
rated R
distribution?
movie.
I know, but I feel like that's only a rated R movie because we're here in 2024 and we have no morals at all anymore. Whereas in 19, when did this come out? In 2000. In 2000, we still had some morals left, and by morals I mean we still had people who would get really, really mad if you released a movie like this in theaters. So that's interesting. I can't help but think this movie would have made so much money if it had not been NC-17. But the fact that it was NC-17 probably caused a bunch of people in 2000 to go out of their way to watch it once it came to Blockbuster or whatever. Because otherwise, I agree. It's weird. It's weird that you and I both watched this in high school, considering that it's something our parents definitely, if they knew what it was, would not have let us watch it. And I don't remember like sneaking to watch this movie. It was just like
No,
it was a movie that I watched at some point,
Yeah. Aronofsky appealed the rating, by the way. I'm looking this up now. And saying cutting any portion of the movie to achieve rated R would ruin the message of the film. The appeal was denied, and they decided to just release it unrated, which is like, this is how damning the NC-17 rating was, that they would rather just release it unrated, which means it couldn't be picked up in lots of big theaters, than release NC-17, which also wouldn't have been picked up by a lot of big theaters because I don't know if you know the history and the politics of NC-17, but like it's one of like the biggest failed things in the whole MPAA rating system thing. Like NC-17 was not supposed to be like, this is porn. It was just supposed to be, this has content that's like harder R than other movies, and we're not going to let kids in the theater. But then they fucked it up. They totally fucked it up, and it just became like because there used to be like rated X, right? And that got, the X rating got basically labeled as porn.
Right.
It's X, like that. That actually, it doesn't surprise me. And so this was like their attempt to redo the rating. It's like, okay, we got rid of X, but we're going to do NC-17, and that's going to be okay. But they fucked that up too.
Yeah. I didn't know any of that, but I'm just kind of going through in my mind, like, I mean, I wonder if it's the case that like the movie got more of a cult following because it was this like, rejected by the system.
It might be. Yeah.
I have no idea. Like it almost, it does give it a bit of cred, and it makes me like Aronofsky 4% more to know that he was just like, no, I refuse to water this down. This is exactly how it needs to be. And then probably cost himself millions and millions of dollars by doing so.
I just kind of don't see why this is NC-17. Like, it has sex scenes in it. They're pretty brutal sex scenes. I get like there's like, I guess it's not technically rape at the end, but I mean, well, as close as you can get.
I mean, I think it's literally just like what it's explicitly showing versus it's pretty explicitly showing things that I think maybe if they were just implied would have been fine, but it's like the camera is showing the thing directly. Like,
I guess. What are we doing here?
I don't know,
Like,
man.
I've watched other NC-17 movies, like like Nymphomaniac. The
Uh-huh.
who did the? Oh my god, what is his name?
Refn or
No, um,
Von Trier.
yeah, Von Trier. Like the Nymphomaniac films are NC-17, or they're not rated, I guess, but they would have been
Uh-huh.
NC-17. And like I watched those movies, and I'm like, yep, I get it. I totally get it. You're basically just showing actual sex. Like
Uh-huh.
these people are just having sex, like for real, and we're
Uh,
watching it. We
uh-huh.
get a lot of shots of Shia LaBeouf's dick in those movies.
Uh-huh.
But like this, I don't know, man. I just yeah, I get it. It was 2000, but what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, I think the rule of thumb, I believe, is in a rated, you should never be able to figure out how humans have sex actually from a rated R movie. You should understand it has something to do with that area down there, but
They
you should
go into
never really.
bed.
Yeah,
There's some stuff going on.
yeah, or maybe you'll know, like, you're just seeing the top halves of the people. Because if we don't put it in the movies, then people will never know how to
That's
do
true.
it.
That's true. You're right.
So
You're right.
yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't a huge runaway hit, but I think definitely made money and helped spur his career. And the next movie, he actually doesn't make a movie for 6 years. It's 2006 before The Fountain comes out. So
Huh.
it's not like he's the type of director that's just churning them out.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I want to, usually I don't like learn about the biographies of the directors a ton when we do these, because I kind of
Mm-hmm.
like to, just look at the art for art's sake. But I am curious about this director. I mean, I think he's less of a like public figure than maybe some of the other directors that we've covered. So it makes me curious.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. But I think that's going to do it for Requiem for a Dream and for this week's episode, right? We good?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. One more thing before we go, though. We got a lot of feedback on our episode last week on Elden Ring. Some of it good, some of it mad, which is fine. But I just wanted to thank people for that. We had some really interesting conversations on the Discord and on the comments and everything about this game that we both really, really like. And it was a cool conversation. The reason I bring this up, though, is if you liked that episode, if you liked listening to us talk about games here on Doof Media, we did have a pretty exciting announcement for you folks. If you're a longtime listener, you know that Elliot and Ruben, partners at this site, who have done the Wildbow Pact and Pale novels, also did a thing for a while called Game Club, which was basically like our book club but for video games. They stopped doing that in the middle of Pale because Pale was way longer than anyone thought it was going to be. So they put that on hold, but Pale finished last year, and they're bringing the Game Club back. It has a new name. It is We Heart Games, and they're going to be playing new games every month and streaming them, and then having a big live stream episode where they discuss the games and viewers come on and discuss it. And it's going to be this whole fun thing. They just officially announced it today. They have let us know that the game of May will be Tunic, a game that I have played and quite enjoyed. So all this to be said, if you liked that game coverage, we urge you to check out We Heart Games. No official episode yet, of course. It's not starting till May. But you can definitely follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/doofmedia. Follow us, subscribe on YouTube at doofmedia, and you can head to the Discord. I think it's doofmedia.com/Discord. We'll send you right there. The cool thing they're doing with this, Matt, I don't know if you knew this, is they are going to be like raffling off copies of the game each month. So if there's some people that want to participate, to join the streams, and you might win a copy of the game, so you can participate with them. So I think it's really cool. I'm really excited for them. I think I really enjoyed the game Outer Wilds I played was for their game club back in the day, and that's one of my favorite games in the last 10 years. So I think it's a really cool thing of if you like our book club, if you like diving deep and talking about stuff, I think this is that, but for video games.
Yeah, I am looking forward to see how all that plays out. I haven't even heard of this game, but I think I'll check it out.
Yeah, Tunic is a pretty good game. And then after Tunic, normally, like we do book club, they're going to do like votes. People can nominate games, and then Elliot and Rube are going to look at those nominations and maybe do some community votes on what we're going to pick. But they've picked this one, and they've also already announced what June and July are going to be. It's going to be Elden Ring. So
perfect.
I think to line up specifically with the DLC coming out. I don't. So more Elden Ring content. I know y'all love it. I've decided, Matt, as part of my honor to the We Heart Games show, that I'm going to attempt to beat the hardest boss in that stupid fucking game.
Okay.
So
yeah,
I guess I'll be doing that in June and July. That'll be my goal.
I look forward to watching that. I also want to do the DLC when that comes out. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's really exciting, and we just wanted to let you guys know that that's happening. So yeah, once again, make sure you just follow us on Twitch, follow us on YouTube, because that's where those streams are going to happen once the game club really starts. And there's going to be free copies of the games. It's going to be awesome. So that's We Heart Games.
Awesome. All right.
They have a cool little logo. I don't know if you've seen their cool little logo. It looks great.
It's awesome. Yeah.
All right. But that is all we had. If you wanted to reach out and talk to us about what you thought of Requiem for a Dream, did it successfully prevent you from ever trying heroin? Let us know. You can reach us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com, on Twitter @doofmedia, or over on Reddit r/doofmedia.
That's right. And if you're not subscribed to the Doofcast, we encourage you to do so, and you'll never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, YouTube, or any other podcasting platform.
And hey, you like us, right? Do you like us? We're addicted to you liking us. It's our drug.
Yeah.
So give us a fix by heading over to patreon.com/doofmedia and joining our community. There are several levels that you can pledge at that gives you access to a whole bunch of bonus content, including ability to vote in our book club, and which is next week. I got to start that Sanderson novel, Matt. Ooh.
Yeah. It's not too long, but yeah, you probably should.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have our bonus episodes we do every month as well. So yeah, once again, that's patreon.com/doofmedia. Tons of cool stuff over there. Check it out.
Yeah, please consider giving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Each review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
All right, folks, that is going to do it for this week. Next week's show, Matt, it's a Shogun.
Yay.
We're going to talk about Shogun next week. The possible series finale is premiering on Tuesday on Hulu. Matt and I both been watching the show, and we have some things we want to say about it. So that's what next week's episode is going to be all about. Not the book, I guess. Well, kind of the book from your perspective, Matt. I have not read the book, but
I'll be talking about the book for sure.
Okay. Yeah. So that'll be on next week's episode. So hope you guys are excited about that. You still have a few more days to catch up on all 10 episodes of Shogun before we do that. But we'll see you all next week.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.